It is the Anfield Wrap. Neil Atkinson with Dan Austin and Andy Bell after Liverpool go to Brentford and score 2 injury time goals and then sit back, relax, chill out and watch as Aston Villa score 2 goals to equalise against Arsenal, and the league table looks absolutely fantastic this morning. We're also with Peloton. There is a couple of days left on the offer until the 21st of January. Find your push and find your power with up to 450 off selected Peloton Bike Plus and tread packages at onepeloton.co.uk. It ends on the 21st of January, like I said, and you need an internet connection and a Peloton all-access membership at £39 a month required. We've been partnering with Peloton so far over the course of the season, and John has got a bit of a Anfield Wrap community going on Peloton. There's a hashtag, which is hashtag TAW Peloton Club. There's a group on Peloton, the Anfield Wrap, where one of our group has set up monthly challenges for us. I'm going to get stuck into that this afternoon, in all seriousness. I've got a bit of a gap between shows here, so I'm doing ratings with you, and then I've got 2 hours until I'm doing review. So I brought kit in. And everything today.
I like the idea of you just doing it in the shirt, to be honest.
In the shirt, just sticking with the shirt.
A sweaty mess on the shows afterwards.
That wouldn't be the word. You can see how it happens, can't you? No. I've brought a change in and a towel as well, so I can have a shower in the Avenue HQ bit as well. And there's a Telegram group as well where people share tips and encouragement. So John's been doing that on Friday. 8 of them did a live class together, which was good fun. So if you need any help, message John direct on that. Also, before the match on Tuesday, we'll be meeting up at Gravity Max before the Lille game. More on that to come, and if you haven't bought tickets for Australia yet and you are in Australia, don't buy them if you're not in Australia. It's no point. If you are in Australia,
there's some commitment.
It will be an unbelievable commitment. There's still tickets left for Adelaide and I think one of the Perth shows off the top of my head. I'm just carried away because the bigger picture, Andy Bell, it's off the back of the 2 draws. It's the idea of really needing the win. It's been and is. We're still in the midst of a run of aways. You can go all the way back to Newcastle. There was meant to be Everton. There will be Everton. There is. There was West Ham. There was Tottenham. There was Notts Forest. They all look like tough games. Brentford looks like a tough game. It becomes a tough game. The sheer brilliance of the late winner cannot be underestimated in the wider context.
The entire 2.5 hours or so from 10 to 5 until whenever 2.5 hours from that, I really should know. I'm a maths teacher, but basically from full time in the Arsenal game could just be completely defining to this league title race and where the league title ends up. I've been reading obviously on Twitter this week, which is that great barometer of rational human beings, of people basically saying, "Oh, I can't believe we've bottled this again." I think there's an element of response to trauma from previous seasons where we've had gaps, albeit with games in hand. And then on the other hand of that, you've got people saying, well, look at this position we're in. It's ridiculous that you're in any way frustrated. And I don't think that's fair either. I think you're allowed to be frustrated that we've given Arsenal a maybe 15, 20% chance over the last couple of weeks when it could and probably should be a 0% chance.
Yeah. I completely agree with that, by the way. I understand why people have been getting anxious.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and I've been worried, and I've been looking down the fixtures, and I've been sort of trying to work out if Arsenal can or will put a run together. But at 4:45 yesterday, we are starting to think, right, okay, 9 could well become 2 here. And 2.5 hours later, we're looking at 6 with a game in hand as well, and Arsenal with some tricky fixtures coming up. So it's just an amazing day. My mood and my attitude from 4:45 to 8 o'clock last night was completely changed. It would have ruined my weekend if we hadn't got the job done there. But we'll come on to talk about the performance, but just those results could be massive. It really could be the difference maker, I think, yesterday.
For me, I think there's a big question, Dan, and we'll never know the answer to it, but well, there was some answer to it because there was people who were there who were saying the mood shifted at the Emirates when the scoreline went from 0-0 to 2-0 to Liverpool. Now, we think we know about atmosphere and the impact it has. Sometimes we're actually down on our own atmosphere or down on our own mood and think that gets transferred to the players. So, is it valid to wonder if that does have an impact on Arsenal? Is it valid to even wonder that whilst Arsenal are sent out to warm up and the scoreline is 0-0, they get back into the dressing room and Liverpool have won 2-0 with 2 injury time goals? Is it valid to wonder if it got into the heads of the players? You know what I mean? You can overstate this stuff, but does it almost feel like Darwin Nunez might have scored in 2 grounds yesterday?
Yeah, to a degree. I think the impact on the crowd is actually more important. The players and the manager have the Arsenal ones have been in a title race in 2 previous seasons where they're to a large degree relying on the results of another really good team. So I think they're used to you play second and sometimes it doesn't go your way and it can be in mad circumstances. But if you're their crowd and you've seen Liverpool play a little bit poorly recently and not get the wins that they wanted, and then you've watched maybe the first half or the first 60 or the first 70, and then you've walked up to take your seat in the ground, and then by the time you've checked your phone again, oh, they've actually won 2-0. And last time I checked, it was 0-0, and it didn't seem like they were getting anything, or they were getting a point rather than 3. I think that then is really deflating. And I think their crowd has improved an awful lot since Arteta has been there.
Yeah,
for the 5 years of latter Wenger and then Emery, I think it was really not very good at all.
I went there in February 22, the night game where we win 2-0.
Yeah.
And I thought the atmosphere was it was pouring down as well, and I thought the atmosphere was absolutely electric.
I've been plenty of times, and now compared to what it was 10 years ago is night and day. It's so much better. It feels like they've got like a proper sort of club culture at this point that I think they didn't have, and that's more than just the manager. That's a lot of different things. But I do think that this season, as it's gone on a little bit longer, they've got a bit aggy with themselves, and I think the way of playing hasn't necessarily helped that. I think they are looking at a team that's less cohesive going forward and get a bit frustrated by that. And sometimes you can hear that they're on the backs of their own players to a degree. And I think by virtue of Liverpool doing what they did, I felt like as soon as it went 2-1, so as soon as Villa got a goal, I thought Arsenal aren't winning. And the crowd was a combination of nervy and angry, because I think they sort of felt what was coming as well, and what Liverpool had done previously in the day just kind of made the whole thing feel inevitable. There was the mad scramble at the end where it could have very easily gone in, and Liverpool could very easily have not scored either of the goals, and suddenly it's a 4-point swing. But just the way the Liverpool match had played out, I just thought meant that a lot of people in that ground kind of thought, oh, fucking hell, this is a bad day again. And from there, just kind of made it harder for themselves.
Yeah, I think whether it has an impact on the players, that the manager will always come out and say, no, we weren't looking at it, we weren't aware of it, we were fully focused on the game. Whether that's true or not, or whether they knew or not, I don't know. But it certainly had an impact on the supporters, as Dan said. You're right to mention I think it's on the BBC live text, the reporter who was at that game saying there were audible gasps and groans as Nunez makes it 1-0 to Liverpool at Brentford. And that will play into the atmosphere, because just in the same way I was saying my mood would have been ruined all weekend if we had drawn 0-0 and Arsenal had won. Similarly, they're going in there bound soon. A lot of them will be in the ground already or just leaving the pubs, and the news will come through, and all of a sudden they're staring down the barrel of potentially a 6 points, as it turned out, rather than a 2-point gap. And, at times this season, they have massively gotten their players back. I think when they drew 0 each with Everton, there were boos at full time. And obviously part of that will be the fact that we dropped points on the same day and frustration from that. But I don't know. I think they're looking a little bit weaker with injuries. Saka's obviously out. Jesus has sustained a bad injury. Odegaard was out for a little while. They're looking quite impotent in front of goal. And even, I'm not sure what the stats say on this, but just from me watching a couple of games, I think their set piece threat is diminishing as well.
I think a massive part of that, the underrated bit of, everyone talks about the cleverness, rightly so, and everyone talks about, for instance, Gabriel, really good point, but the delivery of Saka is a massive part of this. His delivery this season, but also the end of last season, has been the absolute business. So him just being absent diminishes that, I think, and I think it's one of the ways he's missed.
And Declan Rice is a great deliverer of corners as well, it is worth saying, but it went from, when I was watching Arsenal, every time they got a set piece, I felt that they were going to score, to actually Manchester United did really well against the set pieces in the cup game. Brighton, they didn't look particularly strong from them. They scored one against Tottenham in midweek, but I think
doesn't count what you do against Tottenham.
If you took our 7-a-side team from Jericho Lane and stuck a corner in against Tottenham, I think we'd have half a chance. And yesterday again, it looked like Villa were quite comfortable at times defending those. So without that, they don't actually create that much from open play, even with their best players on the pitch. So I think it's interesting. I think Arteta's got it badly wrong over the last couple of weeks. He drops Odegaard for the Brighton League game so he can play him in the 2 cup games. and they lose the first cup game 2-0. Okay, they could bring it back, but they lose to Manchester United as well. So Arteta's in his own head as to what he wants. Is he prioritising the league? Is he prioritising the cups? And in the end, I think they look in a pretty poor position now in both.
Just on that, Dan, with it, because it is now, they beat Tottenham midweek, but again, I don't feel like things that happen against Tottenham necessarily count. And I also include that for Tottenham. When it goes well for Tottenham, it doesn't feel like things that happen for Tottenham necessarily count. It's a pretty rocky little home run that they've ended up with as well. Dropping points there against Villa, defeat against Newcastle, defeat against Manchester United. Again, this idea of walking into that ground and what you expect as a supporter. We've done it. We've watched Liverpool sides. We watched Liverpool sides going up against Manchester City. And just that moment of feeling, and it happens in the ground, there's a wobble here. We are in the midst of a wobble.
Yeah, there can be a level of demand that makes it more difficult from the start anyway, which I think has been happening both because of maybe the way that they've been playing throughout the course of the season, but the fact that, when one result goes wrong, they feel absolutely desperate to write the next one, which is understandable. But then yet within games, it can be like, oh, well, the first thing has gone wrong, so now the rest of it goes wrong, because we've seen this before. And I think it's quite difficult to get out of that mindset. And again, it doesn't necessarily matter all that much if the players are in it. If 65,000 people around you seem to feel like that, then it weighs on you. Then if you add in some of the tactical stuff that's making it harder, like they're not creating loads from open play, and I think there's a bit of leadership missing going forward. Like, I think Odegaard in the past has been brilliant at that. I think since he's come back this season, isn't really doing it as much as what he was previously. Then if no one's kind of taking responsibility and the sort of negative noise is getting you to you a bit, then it can just make it really, really difficult. And when you're already, fluctuating between something like 5 and 10 points behind the team that are at the top over the past couple of months, then you start from a really hard position anyway. And then if you kind of make it harder for yourself, it just begins to feel a bit impossible.
It's also just worth pointing out, Andy, it could well be as you were in a number of fronts. Nottingham Forest, as we record this, they're at home to Southampton. It's a reasonable expectation that they beat Southampton. This is a Southampton side that's lost 17 of 21 so far this season. So Forest then go back level with Arsenal, having 6 behind Liverpool, having played a game more. But even yesterday, little things like if there was any sense that there was any momentum from Newcastle, I was never particularly bought in, but that's dissipated as well with just one result. Newcastle now find themselves 12 points behind Liverpool, having played a game more. And I think even the most optimistic Newcastle supporter, and Eddie Howe, now would say, well, if that dream was ever there, it's gone. It's hard to imagine a day of association football going better for Liverpool.
No, it was absolutely magical. I think as well, the thing we have to remember in terms of those other teams like Chelsea and Newcastle and Bournemouth are quite far behind, or even Forest, that I think there's now a 98% chance that England gets 5 Champions League spots next year. Yeah. So they're all very much focused on, because it took me by surprise yesterday. I was watching the build-up to Newcastle-Bournemouth, and they asked, I think, Eddie Howe, what is the aim now? Do you think the chances are that you get 5th? And I was like, well, why would they be bothered to be 5th? What, to skip the Europa League playoff round? Amazing, well done, But no, that's obviously a good chance of being a Champions League spot, and there's lots of teams in there going to be fighting for that. And teams might be like Nottingham Forest. Don't think Arsenal will be, but possibly Chelsea, because we know that they can be a little bit up and down. They might be a little bit concerned about being dragged into that rather than looking up towards us at this point. And I think results like yesterday make that clearer in their head, that it's actually let's not drop out of this top 4 or top 5, rather than let's claw points back in Liverpool. And we were talking before the show, I think it becomes a numbers game now. There's now 17 to go for us, 16 for most of our rivals. And I think I saw yesterday that Arsenal need 2.88 points a game to hit 90, whereas we're currently on course as we're going, I think, for 92 possibly. And that's not to say that we can't have a little bit of a drop-off, but Arsenal just don't look to me a side that are going to put that run together like they did, to be fair, last season, didn't they? Went 13 out of 14 at one point last year and really pushed City close in the end. It was only a point. They just don't look like a team that can do that. And we've seen in previous iterations of Liverpool sides which have been pushed or have pushed Man City all the way. It takes a lot out of you, and on a couple of occasions there's been a serious drop off in Liverpool the next season. Sometimes doesn't come into effect until around January, February, like it did in the COVID year. So we could be yet to see that. Arteta's obviously under pressure to win a trophy. I think they're probably going to qualify for the playoff round of the Champions League.
Minimum, I reckon they'll come top 8.
Do you think they'll come top 8? So there's something else. And obviously to go slightly off topic, Liverpool and Thomas Frank was saying, we're the best team in the world. We'll come on to talk about that, but we should be looking at winning the Champions League as well. And we're favourites to win the Champions League too. And probably our biggest rival for that, I would say, is Arsenal. At this point, I think they're the only team that could have a chance of doing us over 2 legs. So he's gonna be aiming for that as well. And at some point, the gap's going to be so big, or hopefully there's going to be too few games left that they just forget about that and go all in for that. So and that would be perfect for us if they really do start to prioritise those other things.
On the maths point, what that means is Liverpool have now played 8 of the current bottom 10 and they've away from home, and they've won all 8 of those games, which is the thing that you tend to see in a Manchester City title-winning season. Of the other games they played against the bottom half at home, Brentford they beat, Leicester they beat, still got to go away to Leicester, and a 2-2 draw with Manchester United. I think if you offered us all 4 points against Manchester United home and away at the start of a season, I think we all say yes in any given year, and it means that Liverpool have still got to play 7 of the remaining sides in the bottom 10 at Anfield. Ipswich coming up next weekend is the first of them, and they are absolutely massive games at this point in time to be taken as seriously as anything else. It will make a massive difference. Let's talk about the big fella then, Dan Austin. It's another genuinely astonishing moment. He is, in so many ways, almost the most vexing footballer that anyone can imagine. He's certainly vexed the Liverpool supporter base, the fee that was paid for him in the first place. Simultaneously, enormous contributions on the road. There was 2 enormous contributions on the road last season. This is an enormous contribution this season. And there is something so special about that, even allowing for all the ways in which he does people's heads in.
Yeah, I thought he was largely rubbish when he came on. I don't think he was especially helpful to what Liverpool were trying to do. I think until he scored, he didn't really make Liverpool any more likely to score, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
He wound his teammates up. He had the one where he sort of took the ball off Gakpo, I think it was, and then kind of dribbled around the edge of the box, beat 3, and then it opened up a bit, and it was like, you can play, 1 of 3 passes here, and he just boomed a shot over the bar.
My head was on Mars.
And they all looked at him like, what are you doing? Like, you've done the harder bit. So you talk about, vexing people. I do often think that the people around him on the pitch are quite vexed by him. And he's not the sort of sub, because he's had those brilliant moments as a substitute. So he is capable of it. And even when he's playing poorly, he is capable of it somehow. He doesn't sort of need that short burst of form. He doesn't need a good 20 where, he gets his eye in with 3 decent chances there and they're getting increasingly closer, so the next one goes in. None of that at all. It's just he might do something mad. So it's not like he sort of comes on and he's relaxed and, one thing falls to him and it's going to go in the net.
It's not a read.
No, it's the total opposite, where he would come on and be just the most laid-back man in the world, including the celebration afterwards. He'd scored a goal in the European Cup final and look nonplussed, I would say, about the consequences of that. Whereas Nunez is desperate to force everything when he comes on, and that can be terrible. That can be, I'm going to boom a shot over from 30 yards when I've got 4 better options. But other times it can be, I'm just going to move so much that eventually there will be a bit of space, and it might be me 1 in 5 that goes on target, and the keeper might not get there. So it makes him still, as well as occasionally a hindrance, inherently useful. A useful hindrance, which is a complete oxymoron. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but he's never made any sense. It's not a logical player to any degree. And sometimes when you're playing not that well, which Liverpool weren't, and you're not looking like scoring, something illogical can be the thing that makes the most sense. And that's how it played out. Like, I wouldn't expect someone in the... Well, I shouldn't say that, actually. Of course, nobody watched the game yesterday. Everyone just listened to it. And we're all going to go to the next 3 in person wearing, like, flat caps and suits like it's the 30s, because we've got like, pre-war. We've got 3 PMs in a row. We can't possibly watch them in this country.
Somebody hypothetically may have said.
Yeah. May have said that, looking at him there, he could well go on a run now and this could be the making of him. It absolutely won't. Like he's had these ones before. I strongly doubt that he will now score between 10 and 15 in all comps for Liverpool between now and the end of the season, which, given the amount of games that's left, for like a starting forward would be quite realistic. That is possible. I really don't think he'll do it. But it doesn't matter if he doesn't do it. If he can just, in 2 more league games even, maybe up to 4, but I'd settle on 2. If he can make a significant contribution, if he can score the first goal in a match that Liverpool are finding quite hard, or if he can score the second in one that settles it or something like that, then that's absolutely fine, because the position that Liverpool have got themselves into now means that's all that they really need from him. They don't need him to actually be a £70 million forward who scores every other week. That ship has probably sailed, and it's not required, because other people are capable of doing that, and therefore the responsibility isn't on him. If you can just be this illogical but ultimately useful thing a few times, and it's help if there was one in the European Cup as well, and in the domestic cups, that'd be terrific. If you can just do a little bit more of that, where it just comes off, and there'll be other weeks where it absolutely doesn't, and he wrecks your head, and he wrecks the head of the people that he's playing with, then that's more than enough. I think we would all settle on that at this point, because there's probably enough of a bank of evidence that he's not capable of doing it more consistently. But my God, if he can do that a few more times, and then maybe he moves on in the summer, then what a highlight reel it is, and what a set of moments. Like, I wasn't there yesterday, but the Forest one last year is top 5 Liverpool celebrations I've ever been in. By all accounts, people that were there yesterday are saying it's really up there for both of them. I think everyone, if Liverpool are able to win one of the big things, but especially the one that they're looking most likely to at the minute, and he's played a key role in a few games, then everyone should be able to shake hands and say, wasn't that worthwhile? Nice one.
It is the oddness of him, and he to Dan's point, he burns teammates' heads out. You get to see it. I think Szoboszlai yesterday, there was one point where Szoboszlai was gesturing like, what on earth's that? But then Salah does an interview and says, I love playing with him. The reaction from the teammates post-match around him, the way Van Dijk talks about him post-match, the way the manager talks about him post-match, there's a genuine affection for him, internally within the squad. His teammates do really want to see him do well, maybe because they can see what the potential of him could be if he can hit his straps. But the flip side of it is that he will just, or he has just been so far mercurial. It is, everything he does is mercurial because of the nature of the footballer he is.
I think the important thing as well, when you see that celebration after I can't remember if it's the first or second goal, but it's the one where Nunez and Chiesa are beside each other, and they're both absolutely delighted. And of course, you're going to be delighted if you're on the pitch and you've made a contribution. But those are 2 men who probably have been irritated by their number of minutes recently, or this season in general. I'm not sure either of them have actual grounds to be, but they're human and they're competitors, and they will be. And the players are all delighted for them. They're all delighted. And it just feels like everyone's pulling together. Nobody's... I don't know, you think back to the Coutinho years when we didn't let him go and he didn't celebrate a goal for 6 months, and other players like that who weren't happy. Suarez for a while didn't celebrate goals. These are players who are probably unhappy with their current situation but are still delighted to come on and contribute, and both of them contribute really well. I'm sure we'll maybe come on to touching Chiesa a bit later, because I think that's really, really crucial to this game and going forward in the season, his contribution as well. I've obviously been known to be very critical of him. I'm very sceptical of him, and I loved the moment yesterday as much as anyone else. This is absolutely,
everyone wants to see Liverpool win.
Absolutely, this is nothing personal. People seem to think of something personal against him or made his mind up early on. That's not the case. I just have an opinion on him as a footballer. I don't think he should start games for Liverpool, but I don't think Divock Origi was ever good enough to start games for Liverpool. But trust me, if I went in the night out with Divock Origi in town, he wouldn't have to put his hand in his pocket once, even though he'd be more capable of doing that than me, I think. But I think the debate in recent weeks is that there are certain games which in theory suit Nunez stylistically. Okay, he has theoretical strengths that Jota and Diaz don't have, or their strengths lie in other areas. But my point has been the level of the footballer and the level of the performances recently mean that the actual execution of those theoretical strengths has been so far below par that you do have to keep him on the bench if there are other options available. I think you look at the first half yesterday and we're in so much control in the midfield. We barely lose the ball. And while the front 3 individually don't have fantastic games, I think they're intelligent at times. So, the ball can go into Gakpo, he can lose it, but he doesn't jump on the defender's back and give Brentford a free kick and let them get 60 yards up the pitch and take 2 minutes out of the game, like I think Nunez might be prone to do out of frustration and out of emotion. And that's why I think, despite the fact they didn't play well, it was still the right decision to go with that front three. Diaz is very involved. He creates a lot for himself, but doesn't put anything away. You could argue that's the same criticism people have of Nunez. He's always involved, but he doesn't have the end product. But there's a more significant body of evidence that Diaz will possibly do it in some games compared to Nunez recently. All that said, when he comes off the bench, he's pretty perfect in some games, especially when teams are knackered, as Brentford undoubtedly were yesterday. Yep. He is someone who, if you're in a foot race with him, starting from the same point, you're not winning it. If you're in a shoulder-to-shoulder with him, starting at the same point, you're not winning it. And when the ball goes into him and he loses it on 80 minutes compared to on 20 minutes, it's not as big a deal because they don't have anything in the tank to go forward apart from the two lads up front who I thought we dealt with magnificently yesterday, actually.
Well, simultaneously being able to say they both played well.
They both play well, but so do ours. Yeah. And that's another thing Konate will come on to talk about. But it matters less when the teams are knackered, when they've decided, right, there's 5 minutes to go here. We can see the finish line. We're just going to try and get a 0-0 here. Nunez, what he doesn't offer us in the build-up becomes less crucial, I think. And I think he's going to go in the summer. I think he should go in the summer. I think we should improve there. However, he's going to be here until the summer and he's going to have a role to play and he can contribute off the bench in these games.
I think he can. I think to the point of, Dan, I think to the point of whether or not, the idea of whether or not he's going to go on a run now, all that sort of stuff. I would start him against Lille. I'd have started him against Lille anyway. I think that we need to sort of reset a teeny little bit there to allow for the idea that Jota can play there, but also to allow to be able to rotate at left wing. We're in the situation at the minute where every single game, we're not actually freshening up left wing that much. So the idea that if we can get a bit of a run where maybe Jota's the senior partner at number 9, Nunez is the junior one with the run of games we've got playing every 3 or 4 days, and then that allows you to have options elsewhere. I'm into that, and I'd have wanted that anyway, but now I would start him at Lille. And if he does score against Lille, I would consider starting him against Ipswich, and then maybe say it's a bit of all bets are off for the game against Tottenham in the second leg of the League Cup, and he goes where he wants there. My point is as well, I agree with you on don't expect him to go on a run now. But he doesn't score that second the way in which he scores it if he hasn't scored the first.
Oh, 100%. Like as soon as Elliott picked the ball up and we were on the attack and they didn't have many back, it wasn't just Liverpool are going to score, it was Nunez who's going to score here. Like 100%. Yeah. And the finish is a sort of I'm just going to score finish. Like it's not really placed, it's just leathered past him faster than he can react. You're absolutely spot on. And like the Newcastle goal when he came and scored 2, and we needed the 2 in that scenario. Exactly the same. He wouldn't score the second if he hadn't have scored the first. I think sometimes he is just able to go, like the endorphins almost sort of carry him to the peak version of himself, and therefore in the immediate aftermath he's able to do that.
So how do you manage that?
That's also why he should have been sent off then as well. Absolutely mad that way in a booking. It was the most blatant booking I think I've ever seen, and the manager's face was terrific when he panned to him, the little slow-mo like puff of the cheeks, like what on earth has he done? Really, really
so
funny.
How do you manage that? Because that's the key
I don't think you can.
So do you think this is almost the problem? Like he almost wants it too much all the time?
I think you just have to react to him and how he seems in the moment and hope that it's more positive than negative, and that when he is forcing it, he forces it in the way that's useful and people are able to, spin off him and all of that kind of thing. I don't think you're able to control the way that he plays or how effective he is, because I don't think he can do that. So if he can't, if he when what was it recently, when was it United when he put that mad challenge in on De Ligt that just bought them some time and he got himself booked completely needlessly. Like he was the substitute that had come on there, and it was meant to be right. You're meant to be more likely to help us score a goal. You've got to make really smart decisions, good runs, and he came on and he wasn't smart one bit, and he didn't really help.
I thought he was playing well until that point. He did that, and then he knew he got himself suspended. When probably the one thing the manager or the coaching staff had said to him was, "Do us a favour, don't get a yellow card here. This is the last game." And then he gets himself booked, and then I thought he just disappeared out the game. Then, and this is back to being in his head.
But you can explain that to him. Don't get yourself booked under any circumstance. And and he might pay attention to it in the moment, but then I think it can just go, because I think chemical reactions happen as stuff happens on the pitch, and the thought process goes. But that means then that the thought process goes for the second goal, because it's just I'm absolutely buzzing and I feel invincible, and therefore the ball gets lashed in the corner. So if he can use that, because I don't think you can plan for it as his teammates or as his manager, then great, and that makes him immeasurably more helpful. But I think it just has to be reactive in individual scenarios in matches, and that's why therefore there can be, in theory, a series of really important moments that he's at the fulcrum of, as opposed to necessarily you start every week and you're really important for the shape.
Or you're going to score 8 in the next 6.
Exactly, yeah.
It's worth noting, I think, that if Nunez goes this summer, we will all say that overall it hasn't gone how we hoped or how we expected. However, if we win this league by between, 7+ points, I would say at this point, you have to look back at yesterday and what Darwin Nunez did as the moment which won us the league. And he gets to go away from Liverpool with that under his belt, with that experience, with that on his CV. That was the moment which won us the game, got us out of a run of tricky form. Obviously, hopefully that is us out of a run of tricky form now, and which probably turned the Emirates atmosphere on its head when it went back to 2-1. It's such a sliding doors moment. I think it's going to have such a knock-on effect on this league, and we will all trace it back to this moment if we do go on to win it.
The important thing about players and teams is what they give you. Like, what they cost, it's not our money. Who gives a fuck? I don't care how much. If they paid £5 for them or 70 million quid, doesn't matter to me. And he's given us plenty. Like, for me, Carroll will have always been worth what he was paid for, because that derby at Wembley was just an amazing day. And we all get to, as well as him, everyone gets to remember that until the day they die. Nunez has given us plenty of them. And if he can just do a few more, then I think we all get to say, it wasn't that great and didn't we achieve loads, and thanks very much.
As part of that, Andy, your point there around, that sort of where they end up, the manager speaks post-match, and he actually, for the first time, I think I've heard him genuinely sort of make an expected goals point. He says, we all know expected goals now. And he says, well, if you look at the expected goals from lists off the draws, you can see what could have been. And that's the way I came out of Forest gutted. In a way that people are actually quite surprised about. Amelia said to me the other day, you seemed more down than me. And the reason why wasn't because I didn't think that it was like the moment was there to go, have a big bowl of this is what we're about, and it just never quite comes. It does come against Brentford, but I think that the manager's point out, I've got tons of sympathy with him on the argument for it about Forest and Fulham. There's unbelievable, we're down to 10 men, and against Fulham there's lads throwing the body on the line like no one's business, and I just sort of felt like saying to one or two of the Fulham defenders at times, like, just wind your neck in, we've got things to do here, can you just calm down? And that they just kept coming, and that's what sides get to do against you. I think this is one where, from the manager's point of view, he's absolutely spot on. His argument around Forest and Fulham will be absolutely spot on. I'm not quite as convinced about the games against United's Manchester and Newcastle. They don't quite fall into the same category for me, but Forest and Fulham and this, they're almost all of a piece. It's just in this one, Liverpool's sheer indefatigability within the game pays dividends.
I think with XG, you can never really take it over 90 minutes to tell the story of a game. A lot of the time, I don't think. A lot of the time, it'll tell a bit of a different story over 90 minutes.
Because game state is such a thing.
Absolutely, and across the course of a season. But across the course of a season, it almost always evens itself out, whether individually or for teams. So I don't think you can look. I was surprised at the XG stats after Manchester United, because I thought they were the better team and created the better chances, to be completely honest. However, in the last week or so, they probably do tell the actual story of Liverpool's performances, where a draw away to Forest and 2 late goals away to Brentford might look like we've got away with one, but we've got 4 points and we actually deserve to have 6. From the Newcastle game up to and including Accrington, I would say I was becoming very concerned with the level of performance. I didn't think we were in any way incisive or quick against Accrington. I've listened to the show since, and obviously people disagreed on that, and that's fine. But I think in the context of what had come before, I was concerned that we were looking a little bit leggy. We'd obviously put a lot into the first half of the season. There was talk about, well, our squad looks strong, but also he doesn't seem to trust certain players like Kwanzaa, like Chiesa. That might change as of yesterday. And I was just sort of thinking that with the games coming up, it's really crucial that we get some wins on the board. Otherwise, this could go badly wrong, and we could let Arsenal back in. You were gutted, you say, after Forest. I was really encouraged by our overall performance. A
day later, I was in that boat. On the night, I was, come on.
And that's in the context of the maths and of the result, isn't it? But even in the first half, people were saying we were dreadful. I didn't think we were dreadful. I thought we could have been more creative. I thought we could have been better in certain areas. But I thought our overall control of the game against a team that may well be in the top 5 best teams in the country, maybe even more depending on what your disposition is on them. I thought it was a super performance, and I thought we were really, really good yesterday throughout the game as well. And this is the thing that, given the second half against Forest, when we still drop points, And given how it's going yesterday, where we should win the game, we hit the bar, the keeper makes some saves, we have some near misses with the Trent effort and the Salah effort. You start to get in your own head that just nothing's going for us. It's not our day. Nothing's going for us. And previously in the season, when we got the slice of luck, one of those against Fulham where everyone's throwing their bodies in the way, deflects past the keeper rather than being blocked. Same against Forest, off the line keeper. Yesterday again, you're just thinking we're dropping more points despite the performance level being good. And obviously we get that moment. That's why I think it's going to be so significant, because the performances have been there in the last two games, as well as the actual result yesterday. And it's just another thing we have to remember, like these last two games against two of the sides that have the best home records in the league, two of the best counter-attacking sides in the league. And I think we've given up one big chance across these two games, and that's the goal that Chris Wood scores. They have some highlights in Match of the Day yesterday, but there's nothing really heart and mouth as far as I'm concerned.
The best chance is actually one that doesn't count to the numbers, which is the ball that shoots across the box in the first 5 minutes, but that no one gets the foot onto, so it never becomes a classified chance.
Kanate flicks it round, and there's a couple of times where they get in down the sides and look threatening. There's a couple of times where the linesman bails us out with an early flag, which is unusual.
What a top red he is.
I know, yeah, absolutely.
There was one on about 80 which was comfortably onside, and he put the flag, was crackers.
Yeah, straight away, that'll do.
Yeah.
Oh, can you line it all of our games, please?
And that's, with Hudson-Odoi and Langer so dangerous on the break on Tuesday night, and Bomo and Visas, like two of the best players on the break. Like really, really good. I didn't rate Vissa a couple of years ago, but I think he's a really, really good player. So quick, yeah. And in Bomo, we all know about the numbers. For us to have played how we did in those two games, have committed so many men forward, and trusted our two at the back at times with Kanate. And I think Kanate's the only one on our team. I don't think Kwanzaa can do it. I don't think Gomez can do it in that way. Allows us to play like that. To have that much control, to create so many chances, 37 shots, Premier League record, I think, away from home, I think it was. To do that while certainly throwing men forward and committing men to every attack, I just think the two performance levels have been so impressive, and I hope we take that into Bournemouth.
The manager talking about the numbers, Dan, I think is really interesting. I think there's a little thing that, I think my wider point now, we're 21 games in, we played 21, and my wider point is, the only game that I'd argue, and I include Arsenal away for all of Arsenal's excellence, the 20 minutes before half-time, the only game I feel genuinely that we deserve to lose this season, is Forest at home.
Yep.
And then I think if you then, without even having to go to the numbers of XG, and I agree with Andy that from time to time, it is even expected goals a bit of a blunt instrument. But having watched and endured and enjoyed all of Liverpool's games, the idea then is that if you take that 21, you take that one they deserve to lose, that they probably deserve to win 15 of the other 20, feels about right. So, and that's in the round, there's a funny thing here where Liverpool are, the league table is played 21, won 15, drawn 5, lost 1. And I think we can all shrug our shoulders and say, yeah, that's about what we deserve. It's no more than we deserve. It's no less than we deserve. It's pretty much about what we deserve, the way football matches go.
They're a very controlled, sensible, efficient team. They just pretty much win the games that they should do. Occasionally there's one that's a little bit disappointing, but with the way that everyone else is this season, that makes it absolutely fine. And especially, it seems like a really long time because of it felt like the manager was leaving for 3 years, the few months towards the end of last season, and then it obviously ended pretty disappointingly in the past few weeks. But he's still only been here for 6 months, and they've only really been playing for 5 of those months, competitive fixtures. So to be as controlled and efficient as that is just tremendously impressive. It's entirely understandable that you would have a record something like Arsenal's where you win maybe just over half your games when you've got a new manager that's trying to change things, not like a complete overhaul.
Well, Arsenal 22-12, 8 draws and 2 defeats.
So if Liverpool had that record so far this season and we're looked at in 4th or something like that, I'd probably be a little bit disappointed with it because I know there's loads of really good players there, but I think it was fine and made loads of sense considering, what the manager was trying to do and stuff. To be as efficient and ruthless in games where you think, they've probably only played all right here. If it's a draw, it's completely fair enough. But to win the majority of those games where they've only played all right, I think is so impressive. Like we went to Wolves, for example, in late September, was it? Thought Liverpool were, maybe poor would be harsh, but they weren't good for the majority of that game. And they just won it. And it was fine. And there's been plenty of them since, I think, where Liverpool have just done all right. Maybe across the board have been something like a 6. and it's really easy to draw a 6 or lose it if you just get done on the break at some point, and they haven't. By and large, they've just won those games that they've done all right in, and that takes ruthlessness from individual players in key moments. It occasionally takes something mad like yesterday, although there hasn't been very much of that at all. What it takes more than anything is just consistent self-belief that we'll figure this out. No need for anyone to worry. We've got loads of ways of scoring. We've got, at any given point, maybe 7 players on the pitch that can score as well, including like a couple that are playing at the back. This will all work out. And I think we as a crowd have cottoned onto that really quickly. I think maybe there's been a bit of a wobble at home in a couple of games recently, especially United, where people seem to forget that. And I don't know whether that's just because you're playing a rival and your logic goes out the window. But by and large, I think everyone's cottoned on to the fact that they'll just get this done. And even yesterday, to be honest, I just thought they'd score. Even though I didn't sort of know how it would come or who would get it, I just thought they're looking increasingly tired. It's really hard for them. There's little bits of space that are opening up, and I just think Liverpool have figured it out. And they figured it out in the end through a source that he wasn't even starting, so is an inherently an unlikely source, but still made it work. So I think that even though it was an insane end yesterday, I still thought it had loads in common with other games this season that actually were wrapped up on 70. If that makes sense, because the way
I'd just began to. I was like you until 85, and I just thought we began to look like we were running out of ideas. That was I think I wrote last night in my thing. I began to think the only way this is coming is through a Sepp van den Berg own goal, because I thought that was our unlikely route at that point. But I was with you. Everything you're saying, I'm absolutely all over until we got to about 85, and I was the same against Forest right the way through. That's almost why I took the final whistle so hard against Forest. Was I was so committed to the idea.
You back them so much that it comes as a surprise.
The referee can't be blowing it. It's still 1-1.
That's an immense thing to have, and it's something that Arsenal don't at the moment. And maybe they'll find some way to have it in the 115 on the spin, but there's no evidence of all of it so far, and there's loads of evidence that Liverpool have got it.
There's hard luck stories with Arsenal as well. Like you look in the last sort of 10 minutes yesterday, there's a goal which initially gets given, which then gets disallowed, and has given us some of the most hilarious discourse on the internet I've ever seen in my life, with people actually posting GIFs where it clearly hits his hand and goes in, saying this hit his stomach. I don't know how people think the stomach is shaped for the ball to go in that direction. They hit the post, and they also miss a sitter through Trossard, who I think was offside as well. So, we now go from thinking that nothing's going to happen for us in these games and we're going to have hard lines every time because that's just what happens with Liverpool in title races, to actually we've got a body of evidence now that we can get late goals, and Arsenal we'll start feeling like they're the ones having the hard luck stories every week, and psychologically that has a massive impact.
It's also important that loads of Liverpool players have done it before.
Yeah.
Where they were winning 2-1 and they'd win it on 85 or whatever, and they just found a way.
Yeah, loads of underlying numbers dead interesting via StatsBomb. Rolling last 10 game average for Liverpool, creating 2.2 expected goals a game, conceding 0.81. That's supposedly whilst Liverpool coming under the cosh a little bit. Overall XG difference inclusive over the course of the season, Liverpool sits at 1.17. Arsenal are in second place on 0.64, and the best team in Europe, Bournemouth, are in third place at 0.57. More on Bournemouth to come in a couple of weeks' time for what could be the greatest game ever. Another one that's at 3 o'clock. You've got to go in your suit with a flat cap if you want to be able to watch it. The capacity of that stadium. If you don't go,
you've got to find out in the paper the next day.
Yeah, there's no other way you could possibly know what happens in the football match. What will be a genuine, absolute 5-star classic. Bournemouth versus Liverpool. Honestly, it should be the hottest ticket in town. You should cut to the crowd, and George Clooney's got a ticket somehow. It's going to be that good. Bournemouth versus Liverpool. It is all to come though. Want to move forward and talk about though the other performances on the pitch. Andy, you've mentioned a couple of times Konate. Let's start there. I thought in different ways Konate and Van Dijk were tremendous. I think Van Dijk just Van Dijk's his head off in a normalish sort of way. Konate, I think, still may not even be 100%. But he puts in a 100% performance for the duration of the game.
Well, there's no way he can be 100% because he gets taken off on 60 on Tuesday night, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So if you don't go from only being able to play 60 on a Tuesday night to being able to play 90 on a Saturday, I don't think. So I can't remember whether it was Konate said it himself or Slot said. They literally admitted, I've been rushed back. I'm not fully ready here. I've been rushed back from my injury. And you see that. I don't think he's good against Manchester United at all. You can see he's half fit. I don't think, he's responsible really for the goal against Tottenham in the League Cup, isn't he, as well? Because I think he gets bullied off the ball because he maybe doesn't quite trust his body to be in a position or take however much strain it would have required to have shoved whoever it was off the ball. I think it was Solanke. So, he hasn't been himself. And my take on it is either back Quansah or cash in on him, because there's no point in him being there. I'd rather have someone like that over a half-fit Konate. Yesterday, I think it's the first time where he looked 100% back to himself. It was a 8, 9 out of 10 Konate performance. Being dragged out wide, being so comfortable being dragged out wide, which, the cliche says that centre-halves hate doing. He loves it. Trent can go as much as he wants. Conor Bradley, if he's playing, can go as much as he wants. And Konate backs himself in that channel every time, and he's right to back himself because he wins the battle 99 times out of 100. He is so unique as a centre-half in that respect. Even the greatest centre-halves in the league, Ferdinand and Terry, and obviously not Van Dijk, but they hated getting dragged out there, whereas he's so comfortable. And against, like we said, two of the best attackers, certainly on the counter-attack in the league, in Wissa and in Bumo, and you just never felt, they never fashioned themselves a big chance. They're 2-on-2 at times, and they don't fashion themselves a big chance. And that level of performance from Konate and Van Dijk yesterday is as crucial as the Nunez goals. It's as crucial as the Szoboszlai performance over the last couple of games. It's as crucial as Gravenberch. It's so important that we never really looked like conceding yesterday. We looked so comfortable at the back. And in a game where I listened to the pre-match stuff and people were saying there's no way this is going to end 0-0. There's no way that there's going to be under 5 goals in this game. And we don't change the way we play. In fact, we commit more men forward and still keep a clean sheet and deserve to keep a clean sheet at that ground. My goodness, it's so impressive, the performance.
I didn't think Brentford played very well, to be honest. I thought the shape was all right, and I thought that he defended pretty well, and then just got really tired. I mean, I know that obviously from a Liverpool point of view, it's good that they forced the goals, and Nunez did work really hard for them, but like he was in a ton of space, just not even moving by the time he tapped the first one in. I didn't think. I've seen a fair bit of them at home. Away, they've not been very good, aside from when they battered Southampton. But I've seen a fair bit of them at home, and they've been so difficult to play against, full of energy. They have the big one against City on Tuesday night that goes the distance. I think it took it out of them. I thought he looked knackered. And I thought Wissa played really well. I didn't think Mbeumo did at all. I thought he looked like either he didn't fancy it or didn't feel up to it. I'm sure it's the latter rather than the former.
We had 13 shots from 25 to the half-time whistle. And I just thought they looked dead on the feet. I was watching them on 30, 35. And I think that's partially... I really want to credit Liverpool. I think Liverpool are working them and moving them. And even when Liverpool, I don't think any of the front three who started on the day played particularly well. I'm not coming out buzzing about any of them, Dan. But I think that they work them and they're constantly out asking questions. Yeah,
they're moving them. Yeah. And then, Diaz makes an error with his final pass or whatever it is pretty often. But the defender's still got to mentally be switched on to track the run and physically in order to follow him. And then if Diaz messes up after that, sound from their point of view, but you've still put the graft in mentally and physically in order to stop it. I think they play a really intense way, and they're obviously very good and very well coached. But I think sometimes you'll see them have points of seasons where there might just be 3 weeks where it looks really hard, because maybe they've had a few injuries or they've had some really tough games that they've got good results in, and then it just catches up with them a bit. And you can't not play Mbeumo and Wissa.
Yeah,
you've just got to keep flogging them. And at some point they might come back into a bit of form and fitness. But I thought quite a few of their players just looked like the race was run.
They got a lot of criticism for the fact that they played a massively changed team in the FA Cup against Plymouth.
They needed to.
But also now you can actually see the benefit now when they get the 4th round weekend off.
Yeah,
you can they'll have 2 weeks between 2 league games there, and you can imagine you give them a couple of days off. You might take them to a camp, you know what I mean? Yeah. You might get some, and you can genuinely see the benefit for them. And people don't like that, but right now you can really see why.
And they're not going to win the FA Cup.
Yeah,
so you may as well just go to the start. What's the point to get to the semi and getting beat? Doesn't help you. So I think if you saw them even more tired having played the previous week, then I think that would have been a pretty comfortable game for Liverpool, and they almost got away with it despite the tiredness.
I do think it's certainly the majority of it is Liverpool's performance yesterday.
Yeah, I think they worked them
because we're all at that point of the season where it's February. There's been a few midweek games thrown in.
Still January, mate.
Sorry, it is. Yeah, it's still January.
The days are mounting up.
We've all had the Christmas period, which isn't as intense as it once was, but
it has been since.
And there's been a lot of midweeks, and obviously they got the criticism in the FA Cup. So everyone's a little bit leggy, and everyone's a little bit more tired than they were in August and September. including Liverpool at times over the last couple of weeks. But I think that's the benefit of the front three that we have. It runs them ragged. Okay, there's no focal point there per se. There's one Trent ball in the first half where Diaz is on his heels in a bit, and if you wanted to argue for Nunez starting the game, that is your argument that he would have been there. What he would have done with it when he was there is a different question. But I think the control that we've had in that midfield over the last couple of games, I mean, McAllister, Szoboszlai and Gravenberch have barely given the ball away once. I think, just haven't watched it. I'm sure
I thought Szoboszlai was brilliant yesterday.
I don't know what's happened to him in the last couple of games, because I've become really, really frustrated with his levels of performance ever since he came back from the injury last season, to be completely honest. I understand he's got legs, he does brilliant running, and that's a massive part of our system and winning the ball back. And, you know, he's sort of nominally a midfielder, but when we're pressing, he's very much a forward because we're pressed with four. And I get how all that's important, but, you know, the quality and his usage of the ball has been really, really lacking at times this season. And it comes to a point, like the last two games, the way he's played, and he's been outstanding, it's the complete opposite of what I expected when we signed Szoboszlai.
Absolutely outstanding last couple of games.
Yeah, but in the complete opposite way to what I expected. I didn't expect him to be this grafter. I expected sort of moments of magic, playing in different positions, and to be that sort of difference maker on the ball. This idea that he's this grafter, shoving people out of the way, striding forward into space, using that space intelligently. I mean, it could have been my ignorance of the player he was at Leipzig for Hungary, but I just didn't expect it, and I'm so glad that we've got him now, because previously I would have said 2 months ago, if you've got a European Cup final tomorrow, I would have started Curtis Jones, because he was playing better than Szoboszlai. He offers something different, but he was playing better than Szoboszlai, and what he offered is a control and a keeping of the ball that Szoboszlai just wasn't. He was losing it so much. It's bouncing off his knee. It's bouncing off his neck. He looks so awkward. And the last two games, it's completely different. And I don't know whether the game suit him a little bit more, there's a little bit more space, or he's made improvement to his own game. But whatever it is, it needs to continue, because he is undroppable at the minute.
Last little thing on the wider thing, though, to, you know, Andy's points as well, praising Szoboszlai, absolutely. I also thought that Jones and Elliott made a difference when they came on. Dan, I thought that both looked bright. Jones, at that point in time, with them falling further and further back, just retaining possession, moving them one more time. Elliott slips the ball through for Trent. That Trent fires across at the second attempt. I'd like to see a little bit more of them. We'll talk about Lille in a minute, but I'd like to see a little bit more. You know, I think it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to get a little bit of Harvey Elliott in the side at the minute. But it is worth pointing out that it's quite possible the manager views Jones' best position as either McAllister's or Szoboszlai's. And he certainly views Elliott's best position as Szoboszlai. So you're in this. It's a difficult situation at the minute, but it would be nice to see certainly a little bit more of Harvey.
I think people seem to be generally disappointed when Szoboszlai was taken off, but as well as he played, Liverpool hadn't scored.
Yeah.
So you needed to try something, and you've got two creative attacking midfielders on the bench. We'll put them on then. And they were both really good. I think Elliott in particular, considering the fact that he's hardly played all year. It must be a couple of 100 minutes in the league, maybe. To come on and be as purposeful and as clever as he was, and as helpful to everyone else, I think was really impressive. And the pair of them, but I suppose Elliott in particular, given the lack of minutes so far, is going to be really important if Liverpool are genuinely going to compete on four fronts between now and the mid to end of May, the next 4 months. He's going to have to play a lot more than what he has done so far. I think one of the difficulties is it's hard to play him and McAllister at the same time, just because of the lack of height. It makes you much more vulnerable from set pieces. It means the idea of one of them getting shrugged off the ball by a 6'4" centre mid is much more likely. So I think that's doing for him a little bit so far in terms of why he's not getting on the pitch. McAllister just plays pretty much all the time, doesn't he? It's very rare that he gets taken off. So that makes it harder. And then there's a couple of people in his way. But by and large, when he plays, he does really well. And you can't underestimate the value of just having players that come on and play really well. Liverpool have got a massive squad of players, and they've all had good seasons. Like there's periods of time, maybe like Szoboszlai was getting it in the neck for 2 months at the start of the season, and I thought actually he was just doing all right. Less well than the others who were doing really, really well, but just all right. They wouldn't be in the position that they're in if everyone wasn't making a net positive contribution. And sometimes you don't see them for a while because they're injured or someone else is available who's doing really well or whatever, but they're all capable either in a short burst, like 10 minutes at the end of a tough match like that, or actually suddenly you've got to start every game for the next 3 weeks because of a few injuries, or you're just favoured or whatever it is. They're all capable of doing that really well. And again, there's no other squad in the league that's like that. City are trying to buy 4 players because they haven't got enough. Arsenal have demonstrated the fact that if 1 or 2 are missing, then it makes it really hard for them. Liverpool have got loads of really, really good footballers.
There's just one point, and let me just, tell me if I'm jumping ahead here at all, but I think Dan makes the point about the squad there and the players who can come in for 10 minutes. I think we've added another one there yesterday who can do that. That wasn't previously an option, and that's Federico Chiesa. I think it's completely understandable why Arne Slot hasn't wanted to trust him at times. He didn't have a pre-season with us. He has been injured for games where you would ordinarily throw him into, League Cup games. I mean, Accrington Stanley, he's a shoe-in to start there, and he gets ill in the week, and Rio, the 16-year-old, takes his place, and he doesn't get the 90 minutes there. And you can understand why, on 70 minutes yesterday, he doesn't want to throw Chiesa on, because for all he knows, Chiesa could completely break down the attack. We could go from a complete control of the game to him losing it every time. There was no evidence that he can trust Federico Chiesa in that game. I think now there is evidence, because but he's heavily involved in both goals. There's a cross he puts in just before the first, which is it's as good a delivery as we've seen all day, and the cool head to then sort of help set up the second in that transition. I think you can now look at that and say, right, we've got something there. He hopefully gets Lille. He hopefully gets PSV. Another 2 90s in the legs, obviously body permitting, which is a key thing with Chiesa. But you go from looking at the bench yesterday and thinking, right, well, there's Nunez there. He can come on. We know what he can do. There's Curtis Jones. In a game like that, it could go either way, but Curtis going on with what he offers. But I think you can now say, right, next time we're 0-0. If we're 0-0 away from home against Bournemouth, we can throw Chiesa on 70 or 75, and he's now shown the manager you can trust him to do that, because he had a real positive impact yesterday.
Thomas Frank post-match says, I think we just played City and Arsenal, and now Liverpool in a short space of time. For me, Liverpool are a level above those two teams. They're complete. The work ethic, the way they track back are good indicators. They're so good all over the pitch, such a threat going forward, really, really good. It's the best team in the Premier League and the world. They're the favourites to win it. Little bit of, I think there's a little bit of Dan. Thomas is also then able to go into his own dressing room and say, you've just played the best team in the world, then it was 0-0 on 90 minutes and you've had a tough week. So I think there's definitely an element of that. There's a maintaining the message. So it's important not to get too carried away. But Frank always comes over. You said before, he's a very good coach. He's a very intelligent man. Speaks really well about the game. And that's high praise indeed. I think right now, it is also deserved.
He's absolutely correct. And all of the evidence of Liverpool's season and the other teams displays it. In Europe, Barcelona look like a pretty good team, certainly better than they have been in the past few years, but not at Liverpool's level, I wouldn't have thought.
They've dropped points at 8 of the last 9 as well, haven't they? They're on a really bad run.
You've got various pretty good Italian sides. I don't think any of them are in the same category as Liverpool at the moment. I've seen a couple of Bayern Munich games this season and they played well in them, but nothing spectacular. I don't think anyone is playing as cohesively as what Liverpool are. And as I say, you can sometimes switch 5 players from the team that played midweek for the one on the weekend, and it doesn't feel like it's any weaker. It might be different in some way, and the way they try and make goals happen might be a little bit changed, but they're still going to be excellent. And if when you're not excellent, when you're just playing, relatively okay, certainly not bad, but not at your absolute best, and you still find ways to win, then teams just know what will happen when you play them, and will never feel like they're able to take a mental break. And if you're never able to take a mental break, even when the ball's out to play for a throw or something like that, then you're just going to make yourself absolutely knackered. And then it makes it more likely that by the end of a game like yesterday, Liverpool will just find a way anyway, because you've left them one bit of space and they'll punish you. I think Liverpool are having a spectacular season in circumstances that none of us would probably quite have expected. And you can't underestimate how much praise they deserve for that.
Moving on then to the Lille game, Andy, I think you've got quite a distinct idea as to what you want him to do. I think so far this season, the idea of there being some quite grand rotational moments hasn't quite come to fruition. I think we've expected it because the previous manager might have done that, or because we've looked at the legs. I do sort of wonder off the back of the run of games that they've suddenly had, 2 quite intense aways, the fact that it is a Saturday, Tuesday turnaround, the fact that they are clear at the top of this division as it currently stands, And the fact that it is Anfield, yes, Lille are doing well. The third in the French league, they're doing well in this as well. But I just sort of wonder whether or not this might be a game where we see a few changes. Would you like to see a few changes in terms of the starting 11?
I definitely would. I think the important thing to remember on what we've seen in terms of rotation from Arne Slot so far is that sports science in September and October is different to sports science in January and February. You're at that point of the season where they've had the pre-season. They're still trying to get some rhythm. There's obviously fewer important midweek games, I would say. Given that if you lose a Champions League game, you're in with it's not absolutely disastrous. You can still get yourself in a good position in that tournament. You've early rounds of the League Cup, which if you're knocked out early in the League Cup, it's no massive disaster either. The FA Cup's not a thing. Whereas now, if we're to go all the way in all competitions this season, which should be the aim, we're going to have an important game pretty much every midweek, apart from for the next two. We're 5 points clear at the top of the Champions League, so we need 2, but really 1 because our goal difference is significantly better than the others. So we need 1.
We're 3 points clear of Barcelona. It's 3 points
is that
to Barcelona.
All it is? Oh,
yeah,
I thought
3
it was
points clear to
5.
Barcelona.
Okay.
No, you were thinking about Inter Milan when it was Inter Milan. So we're back 5 clear of Inter Milan with a big better goal difference. But to be fair, Barcelona's goal difference is actually stronger than ours at the moment. But we are 3 points clear with this game against Lille.
And it's no massive urgent. It's no massive disaster if we finish second instead of first and play the 23rd best team instead of the 24th.
Well, and there's a draw on that anyway. It doesn't make any difference. The first and second teams are separated. It doesn't make any difference.
Is that right? So there's no difference between 1 and 2?
No.
But there is between 1 and 8?
1 and 4.
And 1 and 4. Right, okay, I didn't realise that. So there we go. So effectively 5 points as far as we're concerned. Now, there might be a little bit extra prize money for finishing first. I don't know.
There's big prize money for winning every game. You get 5 or 6 million quid for every game you win.
And that's the one where Jota gets injured in Midtjylland and everyone kicks off over it. But it turns out like winning that game would have got us 25 times more money than winning the League Cup would, for example. So that all plays its part. But no, I think for the next two, as I say, if we only just need that 1 point, I think you see big rotation. I think we're capable of beating Lille at home and PSV away with 8, 9, 10, 11 changes. To be completely honest, Elliott needs a game, Jones needs a game, Chiesa needs a game. Nunez.
So would you start Chiesa? Where would you start him?
Yeah. I would start him. I don't know, somewhere.
Right or left is what I'm asking.
Probably go right.
So you would dress Salah?
That's where, I would dress Salah. That's where I'd dress Salah either way, whether I was playing him left or right. That's where he seems to see him this season. Whether that's long term, obviously, in the highlight reels of Chiesa when he was this sort of different player 4 or 5 years ago, he's cutting in off the left and hitting shots. But we've enough players there to see us through to the end of the season. Whether he becomes an option there in future seasons when the composition of the squad's a little bit different, quite possibly. But I just say if that's where we see him right now, then that's where we got to play him in these games and get him used to that. And I'd definitely play him. I wouldn't have Canada anywhere near it. I'd be tempted to go Kwanzaa and Endo, to be completely honest. Bradley plays. Depending on who you see the left back as now, the other one plays. I don't think it really matters. I think they're going to rotate in and out, and don't think anyone's going to be getting sort of 5 or 6 90 minutes in a row in that position. I just make all the changes, and if you draw one each, is fine.
Do you think he'll do that?
No,
I don't think he will either.
No, I think Van Dijk will play and stuff.
I think Van Dijk will play. The ones I want to see him rest. I want to see him rest Konate. I think he should rest Konate.
100%.
I think he should rest Trent, not least because Trent also plays Atkinson.
Okay.
I think he should try and rest Salah if Salah will stand for it. I think there's a chance that Salah doesn't. And I think
I love that.
Yeah.
It's a
workplace. It's a workplace. Do you know what I mean? There's every chance he tries to rest Salah, and Salah just goes, "Nah, you're not."
I think I'd be perfectly fine, and I think I might do it. I'd play Salah and take him off at half time, no matter the circumstances.
Yeah,
because I think that keeps him happy. He still gets a significant rest, and then Chiesa plays 45 minutes because I still reckon they doubt he can do 90.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of into that. I think that there's an argument. You definitely start Nunez. I think that I'd probably start Diaz left wing.
He hasn't played there for a while. He needs to.
So I'd do that. I'd start Elliott and Jones. I think he will start Van Dijk, and I think Van Dijk will start. I think Van Dijk might not start at PSV, but I think he starts Van Dijk in this one. Not least because there's no travelling. But my big thing for Salah would be you can have this one, but you're not even.
The one where we go on a plane, you don't go.
You're not even going. You're not even boarding the plane. So you can have this one, but the one where we board the plane, you're not going. It's not your business. And I think he might start Endo next to Van Dijk.
I would like this to finally be the one where Gravenberch doesn't play, I think.
Well, I want Gravenberch not to play, but I can't quite work out what he does. So I think he might play Jones in the 6. I keep saying this, and he never does it. So by all means, fucking ignore me. I think he might play Jones in the 6 and then play one of McAllister or Szoboszlai and have the idea he's taking the other. He's doing a 45-45 with that as well.
Okay. I'd be fine with just picking Endo and Kwanzaa at centre-back, I think.
I don't think he wants to do that.
I think you're probably right, but I would.
I think he now wants to see I think he might want to see the game. I think he might be happy to see Endo when the entire game's in front of him.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I think that might be how he now views Endo.
I agree with that, but I think this one ultimately not mattering. I think you can just go, you know what, it's fine to just get this fella the rest.
And Bradley at right back.
Yeah.
Would you do the goal? I think for fairness, I wouldn't be averse to doing the goalkeeper, but I feel as though the goalkeeper played well at the weekend and I want him to back it up as soon as possible. So I wouldn't be averse to seeing Kelleher. If Kelleher's on the team sheet, I'd go fair enough. Again, for me, this is another one where I'm quite happy for Becker to get this one and then he doesn't board the plane for the second one, if you see what I mean. All right.
The PSV game. I think you should play Kelleher at some point soon. I mean, he'll get Plymouth, but that's still a little while away, really, isn't it? Let's maybe say PSV and Plymouth for Kelleher then.
What do we think's happening with Kelleher in the League Cup then? Do you think, because he's done that previously, he's put Alisson in for the semi-final and then put Kelleher back in for the final if we get there? Do we think...
Well, Klopp did that, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true.
No, Alisson would just play the final.
Alisson for both now. So you know, you've got to sort of keep Kelleher happy as well. Tyler Morton's someone who you turn down loan offers for, permanent offers for in the summer to keep him around.
You give him one of these two Champions League games.
You know what? I forgot about Tyler Morton.
Yeah.
If he wants to play Endo at centre back and play Tyler Morton, where Gravenberch would, then I think that's fine.
Yeah, I would go Quansah and Elliott at the back. I'd go Morton, Jones, and Elliott somewhere in the midfield, and just patch it up with players who need bits of rhythm. But I certainly wouldn't be. My absolute priority would be if it makes us 1% more likely to beat Ipswich or Bournemouth, then I would make as many changes as we need.
Or just the long run. I think Konate just needs the rest. I think Trent, as I say, he's done the other games. As I say, I just don't see it with Virgil. I could be wrong. I just don't see it with Virgil in this one. And I think the travelling's as much a part of this as anything else. Just the life inconvenience. Gravenberch, I'd like to see given the rest. I think Gakpo's put a lot in recently. A lot of, he's come off a couple of times, but he's come off late. And I just sort of wonder whether or not he could maybe do with a game to sharpen and go from there, really. I mean, Szoboszlai hasn't actually played that much in the last couple of weeks, but he's just ran loads when he has.
On goalkeepers, the Lille goalkeeper is very good. I think there's a fair chance we'll be the Manchester City goalkeeper by the time next season starts.
Okay.
Like probably the top 10 in Europe. He's the best one in France. And they're going to need a goalkeeper, I would have thought. He'll go to someone good, and I think they're the most obvious one. Last
little thing, is anyone else to watch? They've obviously got Jonathan.
Edin Jagrova, who is a Kosovan winger, is terrific. Doesn't like passing it that much, likes dribbling, trying to beat three and then carry it in the top corner, and sometimes he does it. It's incredible. Again, he will play for someone better relatively soon, but he's a bit too mercurial to maybe play for the absolute best. And Jonathan David is very, very good and going on a free. I would not be averse to Liverpool signing him.
Okay. Going to get a result?
On Tuesday.
Are you looking forward to it, by the way?
On Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm really looking forward to it.
I honestly, I think any team we put out is going to win at 1 or 2-0. I think we're going to be absolutely fine.
Yeah. Comfortable?
Yeah,
I mean, they played Friday as well, not Saturday, in that way that happens abroad. They let them have an extra day. They won as well. They are third. They're not mugs.
They beat Real Madrid.
Yeah, they beat Real Madrid.
I think Liverpool will win narrowly, maybe 2-1, 2-0, something.
There you are. Indeed, it's been an absolute pleasure. Huge thanks to Andy Bell and to Dan Austin. I want to be really clear. Gutman was meant to be in. I often disparage Gutman. Like, if that had finished 0-0 and then I'd have rang Gutman at 11 o'clock and he'd have gone, I forgot, I'd have slaughtered him. But it's fair to say he was absolutely delighted with Liverpool's victory yesterday. So I just want to sort of say that I've maybe got to be a bit more forgiving when he forgets when we haven't won, and say that it might not always be a load of nonsense that's self-serving. So big hello and thank you to Rob in general. And these things happen from time to time. He does so many shows and it can be tough when we do a Sunday. But we want to do a Sunday because they're playing Tuesday, because the momentum's there, because it all feels so good indeed. If you've enjoyed the images, Ash O'Rourke's looked after them. If you've enjoyed the words that have been spoken, they've been done by Dan Austin and by Andy Bell. If you think it sounded clean as a whistle, you just need to thank me. It has been the Anfield Wrap this week. Liverpool are top of the pile. The league table looks drop dead gorgeous. It was the thing I looked at when I woke up needing a wee at 5 a.m. this morning. It brought me great joy. Look at it all the way through the day. Take it easy.